He's in before 3:30.
So Mowgli, this is the film that Andy Serkis was working on ages and ages ago. I think back in 2015 they were doing the initial photography for it. He ended up doing Breathe, because originally this was going to be the first of the Imaginarium movies, and then it ended up taking longer than perhaps was originally expected. And of course there was the whole thing about the Disney reanimation version of Jungle Book that was directed by Jon Favreau, which actually became such a big hit. So this is based on the stories of Rudyard Kipling. Extensive use of motion capture, performance capture to bring the story to life. Directed by Andy Serkis, as I said, shot 2015, South Africa and England, and cast which includes Christian Bale as Bagheera, Benedict Cumberbatch as Shere Khan, Cate Blanchett as Kaa, Andy Serkis himself as Baloo. And it's an odd film, and Rowan Chand as Mowgli. And it's an odd film because one of the things about it is that after the Jon Favreau version, after the new version of Jungle Book had happened, and we were all sort of quite knocked out by how well that did. It was, but it's very much a remake of the Disney version. It has the songs in it, it has the musical sequences. It's got all that kind of. What this is it's deliberately a darker version, and it's also a version which runs the risk of falling between two stools, because on the one hand it's a version with teeth, it's a version with with death, it's a version with conflict. On the other hand, it's a version of the Jungle Book, so it's like maybe it's too tough for the older audiences and not tough enough for the younger audiences, not tough enough for the older audiences. There was a lovely quote from Andy Serkis when Netflix became involved again. So this is another Netflix release with an associated theatrical run. He said, "It's really not meant for young kids, though I think it's possible that 10 or above can watch it. It was always meant to be PG-13. This allows us to go deeper with darker themes, to be scary and frightening in moments. The violence between the animals is not gratuitous, but it's definitely there. This way of going allows us to get the film out without compromise." So what he was saying was that because of the film being backed by Netflix, that they had basically been able to make the film they wanted rather than having to change the film they wanted in order to get it into a cinema audience. Oddly enough, I think there is a truth in that. It is very, very kind of unfortunate that there's you wait for a Jungle Book movie for 20 years and then two come at once, but it's impossible to imagine what this how this would have been received had it not been for the other version. But the main thing to say is they are very different versions, and I liked this, and I was surprised by how much it worked for me, because it's been such a long production that always makes you worry. I think the things that are really impressive about Nitin Sawhney's music is really, really wonderful. I think it does have teeth and it does have bite. I can absolutely imagine it falling between two stools of not quite hitting the target audience that it's going for. And I also know that the critical response has been sort of rather sniffy. And part of me thinks, well, I'm often accused of liking things because I like the filmmakers, and I am, as you know, a huge fan of Andy Serkis. But I did try to watch this completely dispassionately, and I really did think, there are things in this that work really, really well. There are things that are in terms of the way it's sort of visually realised, actually tell that it's a good piece of storytelling. And funnily enough, although a lot of the attention may be on the way in which the visual stuff was done, the key thing about Andy Serkis is this: he's a storyteller first and foremost. Although he's right at the cutting edge of motion capture, performance capture technology, he is a storyteller, and that's what we saw from Breathe. And I thought this was a well-told story, and that's actually what gripped me about it. I mean, obviously that's also partly to do with the source material being as malleable as it is, but I found myself swept up in it, and I enjoyed it. I watched it on a small screen, and I thought it worked perfectly well, and I thought that the darkness was there, and there were moments in it that it was darker than I expected, but I thought it was a pretty solid piece of work.